Hello guys, hurry up to join to the today live session guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up guys to join to the today live session. Hi Lauren, how are you Lauren? Thank you so much for joining dear Lauren. How are you my dear? Thank you so much for joining my sister Ring. A lot of love and respect for you joining there. Thank you so much for you joining. Lorraine. Okay, Lorraine. Thank you so much for you joining there, Lorraine. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Thank you so much for you joining there. Lion, how are you, Lion? Thank you so much for you joining to Ring, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hi, Calor, Cassie Lower, Gal. Thank you, Pretty, for joining my stream. How are you, Pretty? Marlene, thank you so much for you joining, dear Marlene. How are you, Marlene? How are you, Pretty? Thank you so much for you joining. I have a lot of love and respect for you joining. Do the like, guys. Have to do the super chat for the appreciation. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Nala, how are you, dear Nala? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Nala. Thank you so much for you joining, Marlene. How are you, Marlene? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Marlene. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Marilyn, thank you so much for you joining. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Alice, how are you, pretty Alice? To do the like and subscribe to the channel, guys, and do the super chat for on my stream for completing my goal. Hi Jolie, how are you, Jolie? Adarina, how are you, Adarina? Adana, how are you, Adana? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Adana. Aditya, how are you, dear Aditya? How are you, Aditya? Thank you so much for you joining. I love your videos. Thank you so much, Cassie Lord. Thank you. Claudia, how are you, Claudia? How are you, Claudia? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Claudia. Adam, how are you, Adana? I write your name there. Thank you so much for your joining. Anela, how are you, Anela? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Alana. Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up, guys. Alice, how are you, dear Alice? A lot of love and respect for you joining, Alice. Casey, how are you, dear Casey? Thank you so much for joining to Ring. Marcela, how are you, Marcela? Thank you so much for you joining to Ring, dear Marcela. Anara, how are you, dear Anara? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Anara. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Thank you so much for you joining. Aisha, how are you, pretty Aisha? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Aisha. Every respected member have to write your name in the chat. Amelia, how are you, dear Amelia? Thank you so much for you joining, Amelia. Lolovini, how are you, Lolovini? Visa, how are you, Visa? Thank you so much for your joining. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Please send the laughing disco. And Nahal, how are you, Nahal? Thank you so much for your joining to sit Rimdian Nahal. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Malway, how are you, Malway? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Malway. Please, guys, encourage the likes, guys. Casey, I write your name. Danala, how are you, Danala? Thank you so much for your joining to sit ring, Danala. How are you, Danala? Thank you so much for your joining. Falibert and Falibert Berto, how are you, Faliberto? Thank you so much for your joining, Faliberto. A lot of love and respect for you, joining. Amelia, how are you, Amelia? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Amelia. Please do the super chat and also to write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up, guys. Alice, how are you, dear Alice? Thank you so much for your joining, Alice. How are you, Alice? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Homara, how are you, Homara? Thank you so much for your joining to City dear Homara. Please, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Jaden, how are you, dear Jaden? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Jaden. Thank you so much for your joining to City Jaden. Jabron, how are you, Jabron? Thank you so much for your joining, Jabron. Harry, how are you, Harry? Please do the super chat, guys, and also to write your name in the chat, guys. Enzo, how are you, Enzo? Thank you so much for your joining, Enzo. How are you, Enzo? Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Maya, how are you, Maya? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Maya. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining, Ashley. How are you, Ashley? Thank you so much for your joining, Ashley. Ale, how are you, dear Ale? Thank you so much for your joining to stream. Please, guys, do the super chat. Have to write your name in the chat. Alize, how are you, Alize? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Alize. Thank you so much for your joining, making the like, subscribing to the channel. Alana, how are you, dear Alana? Please do the super chat, guys. Send the laughing disco. And thank you so much for your joining to stream. Filiberto, how are you, Filiberto? Thank you so much for your joining, Filiberto. How are you, Filiberto? Thank you so much for your joining. Taha, how are you, Taha? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Taha. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Lamb, how are you, dear Lamb? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Lamb. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Ekam, how are you, Ekam? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Ekam. How are you, Ekam? About, how are you, About? Thank you so much for your joining, About. How are you, About? To write your name in the chat, guys. Megan, how are you, Megan? Thank you so much for your joining, Megan. Amir, how are you, Amir? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Amir. Marini, how are you, Marini? Thank you so much for your joining to stream, dear Marini. How are you, Marini? Jason, how are you, Jason? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Jason. Hurry up, guys, to making the like and subscribing to the channel. Allah, how are you, Allah? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Allah. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Ikam, how are you, Ikam? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Ikam. How are you, Ikam? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Ali, how are you, Ali? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Ali. To write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Alisa, how are you, Alisa? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Alicia. How are you, pretty Alicia? Thank you so much for your joining, Ali. I write your name, Ali. Thank you so much for your joining. Yeltsin, how are you, Yeltsin? Thank you so much for your joining, Yeltsin. And Fatima, how are you, Fatima? Thank you so much for your joining, pretty Fatima. How are you, Fatima? Jalene, how are you, dear Jalene? How are you, Jalene? Thank you so much for your joining. Camille, how are you, dear Camille? Thank you so much for your joining, Camille. Alice, how are you, Alice? Yeah, thank you so much for your joining, dear Alicia. Mahi, how are you, Mahi? Thank you so much for your joining. Genesis, how are you, Genesis? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Genesis. How are you, Genesis? Please, guys, do the super chat, guys. Camille, I write your name. Maria looks that. Fatima, I write your name, pretty Fatima. Letizia, how are you, Letizia? How are you, Letizia? Thank you so much for your joining, Letizia. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Lala, hurry, Lala. Thank you so much for your joining, dear Lala. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Lomar, how are you, Lomar? How are you, Lomar? Thank you so much for your joining to Rim Lomar. Nam, how are you, Nam? Thank you so much for your joining, Nam. How are you, Nam? Thank you so much for your joining. Omar, how are you, Omar? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Omar. Lacey, how are you, Lacey? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Lacey. How are you, Lacey? Thank you so much for your joining. Jomana, how are you, Jomana? Thank you so much for your joining, Jomana. Milky, how are you, Milky? Thank you so much for your joining. Encourage the likes, guys. Tinley, how are you, Tinley? Thank you so much for your joining. No, how are you, dear? No, thank you so much for your joining. No, how are you? No. Nano, how are you, Nano? Thank you so much for your joining. Nano, how are you, Nano? Jax, how are you, Jax? Thank you so much for your joining. To write your name in the chat, guys. Mila, how are you, Mila? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Mila. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining. Hourly, how are you, Hourly? How are you, Hourly? How are you, Hourly? Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Zoe, how are you, Zoe? Please, guys, do the super chat to write your name in the chat, guys. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Michael, how are you, Michael? How are you, Michael? Thank you so much for your joining, Michael. Anu, how are you, Anu? Thank you so much for joining Twisted Terrain. Theo, how are you, Theo? Thank you so much for your joining, making the like, guys. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lena. How are you, dear Lena? A lot of love and respect for your joining, dear Lena. Do the super chat, guys. Yeah, guys, do the super chat and send the laughing disco for the appreciation. A lot of love and respect for you, Johnny. Vesu, hurry, Vesu. Thank you so much for you joining, dear Vesu. Thank you so much for you joining, my dear. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Hey yo man, how are you? Hey yo man, thank you so much for you joining, dear. Hey yo man. Vicky, how are you, Vicky? Thank you so much for you joining, Vicky. Thank you so much for your joining, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up, guys. Sabi, hurry up, dear Sabi. Thank you so much for your Sabi. Hurry up, Sabi. Thank you so much for your joining. Remas, hurry up, dear Remas. Thank you so much for your joining, Remas. Watching from India, Jesse, hurry up, Jesse. Thank you so much for your joining, Jesse. Gabriel, how are you, dear Gabriel? Thank you so much for your joining, Gabriel. How are you, Gabriel? Ale, how are you, dear Ale? Thank you so much for your joining. Please, guys, do the super chat and do the super chat, guys, and also send the laughing disco. Delphina, how are you, Delphina? How are you, Delphina? Thank you so much for your joining. Ibrahim, how are you, Ibrahim? How are you, Ibrahim? Golly, how are you, Golly? Thank you so much for your joining, Golly. How are you, Golly? Please, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Mohiba, how are you, Mohib? Thank you so much for joining, Mohib. Terry, how are you, Terry? Thank you so much for your joining. What do you mean, dear? Tegan, how are you, Tegan? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Tegan. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Danger, how are you, Danger? Moke, how are you, Moke? Jolene, how are you, Jolene? Thank you so much for your joining, Jolene. Mano, how are you, Mano? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Mano. Hurry up, guys. Alize, how are you, Alize? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Alize. Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Akron, how are you, Akron? Thank you so much for joining to stream, dear Akron. Santi, how are you, dear Santi? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Santi. Hurry up, guys. Marine, how are you, Marine? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Marine. Please do the super chat. Thank you so much. Welcome. Please do the super chat, guys. Do the super chat or click on the money icon to do the super chat, guys. Thank you. Asbal, how are you, Asbal? Thank you so much for joining, Asbal. Leoza, oh, thank you, Malek. Thank you. Thank you, Malek. How are you, Malek? Thank you so much for Malek. Please do the super chat. Malika, thank you so much, Malika. Malika, can you send the laughing disco, dear? Hi, Morek. Thank you so much for your joining. Lee, how are you, Lee? Thank you so much for your joining, Lee. Oh, Oh my God. Thank you, Malika. God bless you, Malika. Thank you so much. Thank you, Malika sister. Thank you, Malika sister. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Malika. Thank you. Thank you so much. Laughing Disco is my dream gift, guys. Yeah. Laughing Disco and Flow State are my dream gift. Thank you so much, Malika. Thank you, Malika sister. Thank you so much, Malika sister. God bless you. Thank you. Everybody send the laughing disco and do the super chat, guys, for the appreciation. Thank you. Whose words send me a star? Let me look. Who sent me a star? Thank you. And Jasper. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you for the star, my dear. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, dear. Everybody do like and subscribing to the channel, to write your name in the chat, guys, and do the super chat. Send the laughing disco, guys. The laughing disco is my favorite. Yeah, guys, thank you so much. Bogra, how are you, Bogre? How are you, Bogre? Thank you so much for joining, dear Bogre. Jasu, how are you, Jasu? Thank you so much for joining, dear Jasu. Lucas, how are you, dear Lucas? Thank you so much for your joining, Lucas. Adam, how are you, dear Adam? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Adam. Thank you so much, dear Adam. To write your name in the chat, guys. Thank you so much. Madison, how are you, Madison? Thank you so much for your joining, Madison. A lot of love and respect for you joining, dear Madison. Thank you so much for your joining. Kari, how are you, dear Kari? How are you, Kari? Thank you so much for your joining, Kari. Scully, how are you, Scully? Thank you so much for your joining. Yeah, guys, do the super chat and also send the laughing disco, guys. Camelia, how are you, Camelia? Thank you so much for your joining, Camelia. Kumara, how are you, Kumara? Thank you so much for your joining, Kumara. And Nadine, how are you, Nadine? How are you, Nadine? Thank you so much for your joining to Sitarim, dear Nadine. A lot of love and respect for your joining, Madison. I write your name. Good gods love you. Thank you, my dear Camelia. Kathy, I write your name, Kathy. Look that Camelia, here is your name. Kathy, here is your name, my dear. Thank you so much for your joining. Yalle, how are you, Yalle? Thank you so much for your joining. Yalle, how are you, Yalle? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining. And Ligor, how are you, Ligor? Thank you so much for your joining to Sictoring. Igor, how are you, Igor? Thank you so much for your joining. Jahan, how are you, Jahan? Jahavanna, how are you, Jahavanna? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you. Arham, how are you, Arham? Please, guys, make the like and do the super chat, guys. Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Thank you. Welcome there. Thank you. If anybody can do it, guys, do a super chat, guys. Ahile, Ahasle, how are you, Ahasle? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Ahasle. Thank you so much for your joining. To write your name in the chat, guys, making the likes, subscribing to the channel, Jesu, how are you, Jesu? Thank you so much for your joining, Jesu. How are you, Jesu? Thank you so much for your joining. Mitchell, how are you, Mitchell? How are you, Mitchell? Thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining, mother. A lot of love and respect for your joining. He's thank you so much for your joining. Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Tiffany, how are you, Tiffany? Thank you so much for your joining. Please guys, send the laughing disco, do the super chat guys. Forensa, how are you, Forensa? Francexa, how are you, Francexa? Thank you so much for your joining, my dear. Oh, thank you for the star, pretty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the star. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, can you send a laughing disco pretty or a follow state? Yeah, you have to play a laughing disco or follow state there. London. If you cannot follow state or laughing disco, you should send a 6-7. Yeah, you should send a 6-7. Thank you, Kasson. Hurry, Kasson. Thank you so much for joining to City Rim, dear Kasson. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Marina, how are you, Marina? Thank you so much for your joining. Denara, how are you, Denara? Thank you so much for your joining. To write your name in the chat, guys. Make Amelie, how are you, Amelie? Thank you so much for your joining, Amelie. Please guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Sophia, how are you, Sophia? To write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up, guys. Every respected person have to write your name in the chat, guys. Rehana, how are you, pretty Rehana? Thank you so much for your joining, Rehana. Manon, how are you, Manon? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Manon. Varina, how are you, Varina? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Varina. Please guys, do the super chat, guys. Amelie, how are you, Amelie? Thank you so much for your joining to City Rim, dear Amelie. Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Alan, how are you, Alan? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Alan. Thank you so much for your joining, pretty Alan. Lalo, how are you, dear Lalo? Thank you so much for your joining to City Rim, dear Lalo. To write your name in the chat, guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Lily, how are you, Lily? Thank you so much for your joining, Lily. Mimi, how are you, Mimi? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Mimi. Thank you, Mimi. Please, guys, do the super chat, guys. Anaya, how are you, Anaya? Nara, how are you, Nara? Thank you so much for your joining to City Rim, dear Nara. A lot of love and respect for your joining. Oh, Kendo, thank you, Kendo, thank you for the handwrite. Kendo, can you send a laughing disco? Kendo, can you send a laughing disco, dear Kendo? Thank you so much. Thank you, Kendo. And send a laughing disco. It's my dream gift. Can you send it, my dear? Yeah, you have sent only one laughing disco to complete my dream gift. Ari, how are you, Ari? How are you, Ari? Thank you so much for joining. Ken, how are you, Ken? Thank you so much for your joining, Ken. Salma, how are you, dear Salma? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Salma. Lady, how are you, dear Lady? Can you send my dear How are you, lady? Thank you so much for your joining to Cittery. Boblin, how are you, Boblin? Thank you so much for your joining. Dareen, anybody can send us 6-7 guys. Dareen, how are you, Dareen? Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Aram, how are you, dear Aram? Thank you so much for your joining to Cittery, dear Aram. Julia, how are you, Julia? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Julia. Veronique, how are you, Veronique? Thank you so much for your joining to Cittery. Holly, how are you, Holly? Thank you so much for your joining. Tobies, how are you, Tobies? Thank you so much for your joining, Tobies. How are you, Tobies? Andrick, how are you, Andrick? Thank you so much for your joining. Hurry up guys to send the laughing disco. Niku, how are you, Niku? Thank you so much, Niku. Please guys, someone send a laughing disco guys. I need only one laughing disco guys. Jory, how are you, Jory? Any person can send only one laughing disco guys. Yento, how are you, Yento? Thank you so much for your joining, Yento. How are you, Yento? Niku, I write your name there, Niku. Massey, how are you, Massey? Thank you so much for your joining, Massey. Nazarene, how are you, Nazarene? To write your name in the chat guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Ryson, how are you, Ryson? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Ryson. Kalara, how are you, Kalara? Kalara, how are you, Kalara? Thank you so much for your joining, Kalara. Massey, I write your name there, Massey. Thank you so much for your joining. Silvana, how are you, Silvana? Thank you so much for joining. Please guys, anybody send a laughing disco. Anybody have to send a laughing disco guys. Nicole, how are you, Nicole? Thank you so much for joining, Nicole. Nina, how are you, Nina? Emma, how are you, Emma? Aura, how are you, Aura? Thank you so much for joining to Cittery, dear Aura. How are you, Aura? Thank you so much for your joining. Please guys, someone do a super chat. Lara, how are you, Lara? Yeah guys, someone do a super chat guys. Thank you so much for your joining, making the like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up guys to write your name in the chat guys, making the like and subscribing to the channel. A lot of love and respect for you joining. Color, how are you, Color? Thank you so much for your joining, Color. Laura, how are you, Laura? Thank you so much for your joining, Laura. Color, how are you, Color? Thank you so much for your joining, Color. Minju, how are you, Minju? Magal, how are you, Magal? Thank you so much for your joining Twisted Terrain, Magal. How are you, Magal? Namor, how are you, Namor? Thank you so much for your joining Twisted Terrain, Namor. To write your name in the chat, guys. Salma, how are you, Salma? Michael, how are you, Michael? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Michael. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. To send the super chat, guys, for skipping the line. Angela, how are you, Angela? Thank you so much for your joining. Arcila, how are you, Arcila? Thank you so much for your joining, Arcila. Fatima, how are you, Fatima? To write your name in the chat, guys. Desire more. Coco, how are you, Coco? How are you, Coco? Thank you so much for your joining, Coco. Kara, how are you, Kara? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Making the like and subscribing to the channel. Kandere, how are you, Kandere? Thank you so much for your joining, Twisted Terrain. Rumas, how are you, Rumas? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Rumas. Kevara Liti, thank you so much for joining. Namor, how are you, Namor? To write your name in the chat, guys. Sophia, how are you, Sophia? Lara, how are you, Lara? Megan, how are you, Megan? Abroad, how are you, Abroad? Please, guys, do the super chat, guys, and write your name in the chat. I see, how are you, I see? Thank you so much for joining to Ring, I see. Farad, if you like to Rex, please send a heart. Yeah, please send a heart, guys. Please send a laughing disco. Johnny, how are you, Johnny? Thank you so much for joining Twisted Terrain, dear Johnny. Ale, how are you, dear Ale? How are you, Ale? Jax, how are you, Jax? Tim? How are you, Tim? Darling, how are you, darling? Kalora, how are you, Kalora? Please, guys, someone do the super chat, guys. Lara Raj, how are you, Lara? Arrow, how are you, Arrow? Poria, how are you, Poria? Yona, how are you, Yona? Sama, how are you, dear Sama? Thank you so much for joining, Sama. Megan, how are you, Megan? Vinny, how are you, Vinny? Arrage, how are you, Arrage? Anybody is going to sing a laughing disco? Who is going to sing a laughing disco, guys? Any superhero is sending a laughing disco, guys? Anna, how are you, Anna? Okay, Anna. Anybody is going to sending a laughing disco? Who is going to sending a laughing disco, guys? Who is going to sending the laughing disco? Who is going to sending the laughing disco? Danala. Who is going to sending the laughing disco, guys? Okay, Danala. Any person is going to sending laughing disco, guys? Saline. Okay, Saline. Aloha, how Aloha. Okay, who is going to sending the laughing disco, guys? Levin. Okay, Levin. Who is going to sending the laughing disco, guys? Any person can send the laughing disco. Any superhero can send the laughing disco, guys. Alize. Megan. Who is going to sending the laughing disco, guys? Yeah, if you listen, guys, if you do the super chat, click on the money icon, to do the donation for the super chat. Yeah, it's to do the donation for the super chat. You will be got the below title of my suffering. If somebody have to send the do the super chat on my stream, he will be got the below title of the suffering. I will also to subscribe his channel. and also to share her channel on my profile if someone has to do the super chat. For the shout out to do a super chat, guys. Yeah, for the shout out to do a super chat, guys.